kind of weekend just to see how it goes. Because even like the figures that he gets, regardless whether they're good or bad, could just been down to that day, because it was a weird day to have it on New Year's. So I would hope that he's better, because sometimes you look at ITV's listings and you're thinking, well, that's just rubbish what they got on there, but that's just my opinion. Obviously, people of the UK do enjoy a bit of rubbish TV, otherwise some of those shows that they've got on there wouldn't be on anymore.
Yeah.
So, it's difficult to tell because so many people are into different things, but as a wrestling fan, I've got a hope that there's a place for it.
Yeah, I hope so too, just for the fact of the guys working, and of course, it's great to have British wrestling back on a huge channel like that. The only thing I worry, I hope that they have wrestling people at the top. I wouldn't like to feel like ITV writers would be doing it, and I think they really need to tap into the guys that promote British wrestling over the years and use their heads to do the booking and stuff like that, because again, it's kind of what you can always look back at WCW and you'll hear many stories from Eric Bischoff and Vince Russo about these TV network people coming in and telling them what to do, who had absolutely no idea about the wrestling business itself. So I think that's got to be managed fairly well. And the good positive thing to it, Matt, is it was so different from what we're kind of used to seeing, and I think that played out well. Like the presentation of it and everything else kind of was like it wasn't like TNA, it wasn't like WWE, it was its own thing. And I think when you can make some sort of identity, whether you agree with it or you don't agree with it, it's invaluable, because you really have to have an identity. And I felt like they did present that. I think they went a long way in definitely making it an all British roster. I think they definitely wanted to put that across. In years gone by, there's always been that sort of big American name that's come over to sort of fill the void of having the big superstar to get the people in. Obviously, whether that's the case going forward, who knows? But I think the only thing I would say, Matt, is there is a huge difference in putting in a studio audience to a paying consumer who's going to go there, and I think that they may decide, like, it may get a little bit too edgy for ITV in that sense. I don't know. I'm just thinking of how I see those NXT crowds when they come over in the UK, and I'm thinking, I don't think ITV would like too much of that going on in their show. So I don't know how they'd get around that, but obviously maybe they just fill it every week with a studio audience. Who knows? But best of luck with that. And obviously, if we hear anything, folks, you'll be the first to hear about it on our podcast. We'll keep our ear to the ground. But overall, Matt, summing it up, I would give it a pass and a thumbs up. More positives than negatives, I would say.
I'd agree with that. I mean, it's just a starting one, isn't it? I mean, there's always going to be room for improvement, so I think it was a good, solid start. Yeah,
absolutely. So, anyway, also, guys, obviously, Monday Night Raw tonight, if you're listening to us live, of course, just getting a few little bits of snippet news in. Don't know how legit this is, Matt, but I'm hearing some news that Paige is backstage at WWE Raw, and it could just be from what I'm reading, it could just be that the WWE doctors are evaluating her and looking after the neck surgery that she went. So I'm not going to say that she'll be on the show itself, but she's been apparently photoed and spotted there at the event tonight. So who knows what's going to transpire. Going now to the WWE, Matt. Of course, with tonight as well, they have already put out, Matt, I'm sure you've seen it, that Bill Goldberg will be appearing on the show. And of course, Monday Night Raw, start of the new year, always does normally have a big bang to it. So I'm guessing, Matt, that's going to be no let off for that tonight, and I'm sure we should get a decent show. Maybe a few announcements are going to go down. What have you made of WWE of late, Matt, and some of the stuff that's been going on? Have you enjoyed the product in the December month? Because it's always one of those months, Matt, where I feel like it's closing a lot of feuds, and it's and in a lot of for a lot of wrestlers, it's sort of like a stale part because they're just trying to get over the line into January now, and it's all about the Royal Rumble. And certainly this year, Matt, I've certainly felt it because they announced Goldberg and Lesnar in the Rumble so early on. So I think people's focus has been on that. What have you made of what we've seen on just Raw first, Matt, and the stuff they've been doing there, and the whole how that's all been playing out? Have you enjoyed what's been happening on Raw?
Raw. It's a difficult one. I've enjoyed the show overall. I think the show is entertaining, but I think the way it's progressing, it just isn't. Like the storylines that they're coming out with, and it's they've all gone like a roundabout way, like sneaking in the back now with a Roman. They're like, maybe if we sneak Roman in, like dangle the Shield in front of them. Like, you remember the Shield? You used to love the Shield, and then like, oh, here you go, have some Roman. Like a secret dose, and he's going to get into the title picture. No, I don't like that. I mean, because for one thing, I don't mind Roman in the title picture if it actually has a meaning. But for this time now, I don't see him picking up that belt. I still think that WWE is worried about that real negative backlash of having him as a champion. And it just feels like they're filling the gap, like they haven't got anyone better, and they don't want Seth to get in the way because they've got that Triple H thing that they're slowly. I mean, like I'm talking about really slowly, like a tortoise, like creeping up on us. That kind of feud is sneaking in. So it just feels like the feuds that they're going with have really, really been burning a long time, and it's in danger of just like when it actually comes round to these matches, it's just going to be really stale. I mean, I don't mind. I don't mind seeing Triple H versus Seth, but we've waited for so long now that it's going to have to be something pretty special.
And a bloody good reason why he hasn't already been involved up until that point. But I think with Raw, I've it's the usual chestnut. New year, but same sort of criticism is that I do find that extra hour is just too long on Raw. And it's all quantity over quality for them a lot of the times, and I do think there's so much time for people they're doing promos that are not as good because they really are not against the time or the clock anymore, and it's just like, okay, go out and do the scripted stuff. It's fascinating, Matt, because both Raw and SmackDown, when you listen to the Talking Smack and Raw afterwards, it's better than what we get on the shows because it feels like it's not scripted. They're just in characters. I don't know what you think about that, but with all this positive feedback about it and getting guys over more on this show, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about, how UFC do their stuff now, is that they're not having to perform in a ring every week to get people to buy their fights. It's all about what they're saying and being passionate and having some sort of logic behind it. And I feel if WWE would just take a little bit more of a breather and let these guys go out there and just give them some bullet points as opposed to a script. Like everything that Roman Reigns says is kind of like he says the same kind of dialogue, the same wording as what I'm going to hear Kevin Owens say, because they all have to say Universal. They can't just say title anymore. There's always this sort of language in WWE, and it feels like the same writer is writing for everybody, and they all sound the same.
I'm quite glad you brought that up though, because now you've said that, we're supposed to be now engaged in a story with Neville about how he's heel turned and everything, but yet he's hitting those exact same spots you're talking about. He's like, I'm not the man Gravity forgot, I'm the man the WWE Universe forgot.
Yeah,
that doesn't sound like something that you would want to bring out on a heel turn.
It is. It's dreadful to listen to because again, like there's no spontaneous coming out of that, and I think it's, I think they should give these guys the chance to do it. Like, I mean, listen, you can't tell me that, a guy like The Rock got himself over because he was reading like everybody else back then. Not a chance. The same with Steve Austin, Brett and all the rest of it. Like, even Bret Hart, I mean, they said Bret struggled with his lines, but I could believe Bret being nervous over what I'm hearing wrestlers having to read every week. I could take that nervousness from Bret anytime over what I'm getting now, which I just think speaks volumes, really, about where it is. So yeah, I really dislike that whole writing for the guys, and obviously I think this whole talking smack business has done a world of good. But I hope the WWE do take some sort of notice of it and go, right, hang on a minute, the Miz has got himself really over on this show, cut some good stuff. So have a lot of other guys and girls. Let's start doing that on the actual show that we want people to tune into for a good 3 hours. Let's start using some of that, because certainly it is really, really missing, and I am not enjoying the whole same language that everybody has to use at the moment. Like, it won't be long, Matt, until we have The Undertaker coming out and start talking like it. It's getting that way. The only guy I find that doesn't talk in that language is Paul Heyman and probably Brock Lesnar and Bill Goldberg. And I don't get, when you look at Bill Goldberg and everyone went, God, the way he come back with all that passion, and he said arse and all this stuff. And I'm thinking, yeah, that's because he's not being scripted. So how come WWE can't do that for the rest of their guys, If I was a WWE roster, if I was on that roster, I'd be looking at Goldberg thinking, God damn, how come I'm not getting that? I want to have just a free reign, because I'm sure, I'm not saying every guy's confident, but I'm pretty sure, Matt, that they would rather go out there as the character, being character, and kind of just go along with it with a few bullet points, and go that way, than sort of reading the same lines and sounding the same. Because as a viewer, Matt, it doesn't come across well. And as you said, Adrian Neville is the latest victim of all of that. Do you think that the whole, as I said, Matt, I know you mentioned to me how good talking smack has become. Who else, Matt, can you remember that's come across really well in the past, other than the Miz? I'm trying to think of other.
Oh, well, if you was going all the way back to the draft, do you remember when Cesaro?
Oh, of course, yeah. Yeah.
And that was another case, because they said this guy can't talk, but if you let him talk from the heart, it just sounds so much better.
Yeah, I found as well. I think that you'll find Daniel Bryan, when he was at the peak of when people really wanted to cheer him. Again, he was going out there talking as Daniel Bryan, not this kind of static voice. I mean, I tell you who's really a victim of it, Matt, is Randy Orton. When you listen to Randy Orton speak, it's not exactly getting your goosebumps going, and he's really reading off those lines sometimes, and there's been so many occasions where that happens. I just wish they would kind of be like, well, look at what Paul Heyman can do in that ring, at the moment, and I'm guaranteeing you, nobody is writing Paul Heyman's material. Nobody.
It can cut you both ways, though, because on the other hand, I feel like they let Dolph Ziggler say what he wants to say and get his message across, but then the actual product they give him in the ring, the stuff they give him to work with, and the results, like all the losses, are so harmful to him, because he's saying one thing and they're actually being told to do another.
That's a great point, actually. That's a really good point. I think as Raw and SmackDown go, it's been a little bit. It's just been sort of one of those sort of. It always is like this time of year, Matt, where I think everybody's just focusing on getting to the Royal Rumble, and then obviously starting that road to WrestleMania. Matt, just looking again tonight's show. I just want to let everybody know that might be tuning in for Raw later. The WWE have already announced some matches that are going to happen tonight. WWE has set another match up for Raw with Carl Anderson facing off against Cesaro, which should be interesting. And of course, the big announcement that Goldberg's return. Sami Zayn is going to be up against Braun Strowman, Matt, again in a last man standing match.
Now,